welcome to Ireland on the Fly. This week sees us return to salmon, and Garrett and myself are joined at this week's show by Blackwater guide Damien O'Brien. Damien works in the Blackwater Valley Fishery and is also an instructor there. He tells us how it was through a family friend and neighbour that got him into fishing, not the usual route of a family member to show him the ropes, and he took off from there. He discusses the art of guiding and how a guide has to relate and work with the clients for success, and how he really loves this part of his role. On the travel side, he tells us of his love for Canada, and his now regular trip to British Columbia is one he cherishes. All in all, Damien had so much to tell and chat about. We really had a good talk. I hope you enjoy it too. But before we join Damien, Garrett, you had a bit of success since you were on last. Tell us.
Evening, Tom. Hiya. When we last spoke, Brendan Garland was on with us, and by chance we were teamed up to fish, I think 2 days later on the ridge. That morning, no, I met a fish, but it didn't stick. So the head-to-head between Brendan and I, it was 0-0. The fish won that one. But I got a phone call from a client who I was meant to be looking after on the ridge the next day. He couldn't make it. I fished his rod. And yeah, it happened. Yeah, I got my springer. Anyone who knows me won't have to ask what fly it was on, but for the world, it's the lads are now calling it Garrett's gun rather than Willie gun. Gold-bodied Willie gun with a extra little bit of angel hair sparkle in it, cone head, and a little red tag on the arse. My go-to.
What size actually?
The flight's about in that height of water is about a 1-inch tube. So the overall length of the fly might have been about 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches. The fish wasn't the biggest springer, but somewhere between 8 and 9. Yeah, obviously he went back alive. Went back great actually. Just to get him, just to get that itch scratched.
I did receive a picture of him.
You did. There was proof. There was proof. There was proof.
And he was a fine looking fish. Looking fish.
Met a few grilse since then, and they're all equally welcome. They're hard got this year, Tom. We have to work very, very hard for them. I'm on about half the number of fish landed now that I would have had for this time last year for roughly the same amount of effort. I think that's kind of reflected across the board. It's challenging times out there now at the moment. The state fisheries on Galway Weir, here on the Moy, Clungy and the Ridge. East Mayo have emailed us today where if the temperatures rise again tomorrow, East Mayo will probably be closed. Damien is saying to us they're possibly closing their fishery. Connor Arnold, friend of the show's, closed his as of today. I think Ballastadair are talking closing. Changing times, rising temperatures, changing times. I think there'll be an episode in its own right on that, how this is going to affect salmon in the future. But for the moment, yeah, it's not easy. But we're still loads of time to come yet. The grilse are really only starting to arrive. And the grilse that I have seen this year, they're good chunky fish, good well-fed fish. So let's hope loads more of them are on the way.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you say with the figures, but it is early days yet, shall we say. So
not from my own fishing, but chatting with guys, very, very, very unusually. The rivers in the east coast and the southeast coast of the country have come alive in the last 2 weeks. Good buddy of mine, David O'Hagan, an excellent angler, fishes the east coast rivers and over here in the west. And I met him on one of the Spate rivers there about 3 weeks ago. And I said, David, you're very early. We don't normally see you here till July. And he said he'd given up on the east coast rivers, couldn't find the fish. And then he got in touch to say the fish have hit the Slaney. Another buddy of mine had a fantastic afternoon on the shore. The Barrow is producing fish, but these fish, it's been June, second week of June that they're arriving, and these are the fish that are traditionally arriving 6 weeks prior to that. So it is strange.
They're bigger fish as such.
Oh, these are big.
Yeah, they're like the spring run.
Buddy of mine, Morgan, his 3 fish, the smallest is 12. They all went back, and he estimated 12, 14, 16 in one day's fishing on an eminent fishery on the shore. It's very, very, very encouraging to see.
Well, that's good to hear.
It's not fixed. Their salmon issue is not fixed.
Oh, God.
But it always throws us little surprises, and these are positive little surprises.
Well, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. Yeah. So look, we keep abreast of that, and hopefully, the West Coast fisheries will follow suit now with the pickup in numbers, and we'll see that. So listen, we'll
It's a
switch over
case
now.
of
Go on.
it's a case of wait and see at this stage, but it's not all doom.
Yeah, no, it's not all doom. Thanks be to God. Okay, so listen, we'll switch back to Damien now, and I first asked him how his fishing has been so far this year. How's the season been for you so far?
Look, I suppose it's been like everyone else's season, really. So, water levels have been high enough for a couple of months, have dropped off. Now we're facing into pretty high temperatures, and look, anybody out fishing in this weather would be really want their head tested. It's just too warm, it's uncomfortable. But as well as that, I think it's probably best to leave the fish alone when temperatures are this high. Fish can get stressed out enough in high temperatures, let alone with somebody putting a hook on them as well.
Yeah, that's it. What actually is the water temperature with you this week?
It's close to 20, and now that would be up in the middle reaches of the river. It is a little bit lower downriver, down in our lower beats around Ballyduff. So they're still open, but I was talking to the fishery owner today, and it looks like we're going to be closing all right. Now, saying that, there's a lot of rain forecast, I think, on Friday, maybe into the weekend, and all next week is, a fair bit of rain due. So, hopefully that'll cool temperatures back down a bit.
Yeah, there's a big drop in temperature actually forecasted this weekend. So like by the time people are listening to this, that drop will have happened. But just interesting, how quick does the water temperature rise in the river? Like, do you know what it was last week, for example?
Off the top of my head, no. All I do know is that it wasn't too hot. It wasn't overly warm. It was actually perfect, to be honest with you. But I reckon it was beginning to creep up at that stage. I think that definitely over the last few days with the high temperatures, it's just gotten higher and higher. It was probably down around 14 degrees, 15 degrees thereabouts. But I know it's up around 19, varying towards 20 at this stage, and that's I think even the Moy is in the ridge pool and that they've closed it today, and I think Galway Weir as well, as far as I know.
Yeah, good evening, Damien. How are you? Good
Hi,
to chat
Garrett.
to
How are
you
you
again.
keeping?
Good. I heard the word "moy" and my ears pricked up. No, no, as you know, when you're talking moy, we're in my patch, and this is my busy time of year for guiding on it, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm doing a bit of fishing myself, and I've been on the ridge quite a bit in the last 10 days, and from about this time last week. I thought the Gilly was joking. He did like the religiously to take a couple of readings every day. And about a week ago, he came out and he says, "Oh, you're okay for today, but it's climbing." And this about a week
Really?
ago, it was 16 and a half at that
Mm,
point. And
okay.
then nearly every reading they were taking, it was coming up about three-quarters of a degree a day, three-quarters of a
All
degree
Yeah.
right.
a day. And
Mm.
that wasn't in massive, wickedly hot weather. Like
Mm,
it effectively closed before the hottest of it had come. I
yeah.
believe it was 21.3 today. It hit 20
Oh,
yesterday, and it's gone up to
yeah.
21.3 today. But looking here now, it's a duller day here, but it's a protocol that's in place.
Yeah.
It's hit the 20 for more than two readings in succession, so that protocol is now in place. Not everybody here is happy with it.
Well, you can't please all the people all
You
the time,
can't, you can't.
Some of the people, some of the time, was it?
There's
There you go.
business owners reliant on their income. They're seeing this as not quite an assault on them, but they're seeing that it's something that's going to weaken their business. They fear it might target tourist people come and they're not able to
I,
fish in their
I,
trips. It's
yeah,
unfortunate, but we have
it's
to mind the fish.
you have to, and I think that attitude has to be taken with a pinch of salt, really, because it's they're thinking in the short term,
Mm.
whereas we have to think of the long term and protecting the fish. They're in serious trouble, as we all know, and anything we can do to protect them, that's what needs to be done.
Yeah. Actually, just Damien, there, could you, for people who wouldn't be in the know, explain when the water is at 20 degrees, what effect it has on a fish that you've caught?
Well, like your fish are going to be much more dour. Um, you can see on, as the temperature's rising, fish can start getting lesions on them, and you'll see white spots and white patches, and they're just, they just go off. And I'm sure Garrett will have probably experienced that as well up in the Moy,
Mm.
when temperatures get really high. But obviously they become susceptible then to different types of infections when they do get
Mm.
lesions on them, and they need to be left alone.
Yeah.
Need to be left alone.
And with the higher temperatures, of course, there's less oxygen in the water.
Less oxygen, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's it's just not right to target fish in those circumstances.
Mm.
I don't, not just necessarily salmon, but I think other species as well. Unless you're fishing in the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
It's
Yeah.
contentious down this way, lads. There's a lot of chatter between the Ridge Pool and the Galway Weir. There's a lot of chatter on forums and WhatsApp groups, and this is something we're going to have to be looked at for the coming years, because the last couple of years now, this has happened in summertime.
Mm,
Believe it or not, the Ridge Pool at the moment is still, yesterday was still over the fly only mark, as in, so it's
mm,
technically high water. Galway Weir at the minute, there are three gates open, which really
mm,
means it's not safe for wading, and
mm.
it's really way too high for comfortable fly fishing. So this is in high water scenarios. We're
Yeah.
still breaching the 20 to
Mm.
20 degree scenario. It's kind of it's concerning, because for cold water migratory species as like the salmon, sea trout, who don't tolerate hot water, who don't tolerate the low dissolved oxygen levels,
Mm.
this is something that's very much going to be raising its head in the coming years. I don't
Well, I
have the
think
answers,
I,
but
I,
there's a lot of exploration needed.
you touched.
Yeah, and it's like we're experiencing the same in the Blackwater with water levels. They're not. You look at weather like this and you think, oh yeah, the river will be on its knees. It's not. There's actually a nice height of water there. Um, but as you say, like you still have, even in that volume of water, you still have temperatures rising,
Mm.
and it is worrying for sure. Whether that's going to be a constant in the coming years. Look, some people don't believe in climate change and that, but um, I think we're seeing the evidence of it. When you have temperatures reaching, frying an egg on your head time
Yeah.
down here in Cork today, or 44 degrees in some European countries. It's, if we keep getting, regular high temperatures like this during the season, it is worrying for sure.
It is. And actually, we touched on it there because I think this is the third year on the trot,
Mm,
isn't it, that this has happened? That,
yeah.
let's say, the state fisheries have been closed.
Mm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's definitely the third, if not the fourth. But so it's becoming regular.
It is, but I think for the difference this year for us is that there's more water than there
Yeah.
was
Mm.
in previous years. So, like when it's happened over the last couple of years, the rivers were low because you had a pretty dry spell coming up to it. And look, we all know the volume of rain that we've had over the last couple of months and that. So the water levels are still up, but
Mm.
how long that will last, I don't know.
Yeah, because the last couple of times it has generally coincided with lower water levels,
Mm,
and it's
yeah.
kind of more acceptable and or understandable to take that it's happened. But
Mm,
yeah, it's an interesting one. It's one we watch. Anyway,
Speaking of water levels, Damien, and the fact that you're primarily on the Blackwater,
mm.
how is the Blackwater looking after that awful event of last year, that pollution event?
Well,
What are you seeing? How are you seeing par? How are you seeing juveniles? Are you seeing any marked difference? Are you seeing any recovery? How's it looking?
no, not seen recovery at all. In fact, I actually saw a letter in the last couple of days where there's a move on to get a particular factory reissued with a license to dispose of effluent into one of the tributaries, but on a so-called more monitored way, which is very worrying, you know.
Without mentioning any names, might this be a company whose name was publicized in relation to the incident?
Yes, that's right, yeah. Yeah.
Oh God, I have to believe that they had gone away. I have to believe that they had ceased
No,
operations.
look, I suppose, you know, when you have pressure being brought to bear from certain quarters, you know, it's, you know, a lot of things can move behind the scenes, but it'll depend on how much pushback there is, and, you know, with, I think, a more concerted effort, possibly can get stopped, you know. But then again, you know, it depends on who's speaking to who and who's got the ear of the right person. So, you know, there's a lot of questions to be asked there. And personally speaking, you know, a hearing of any effluent going into the river, it's, you know, it's not a sewage system, it's not a free sewage system. But that's the way it's being treated. But I think, like, when I look at the Moy, you see towns on the Moy like Foxford, Ballina, they look to the river. They're facing the river and see what sort of a resource that it is, for, you know, generating businesses like, you know, B&Bs or bars, restaurants, stuff like that. But when you look at towns along the Blackwater, it's almost like they've got their back to the river, not recognizing the type of resource that it could be. I actually had some clients there last year, and I think that there was 4 of them, and they were looking to stay in the area, but they were pretty wealthy clients. They wanted somewhere kind of upmarket. They couldn't get a hotel anywhere from Killarney, basically, down to Dungarvan, I think. And there's one hotel in Mallow. I'm not sure why they didn't stay there, but look, obviously they were a certain type of clientele. But I find it a consistent thing that, you know, people are finding lack of B&Bs. Like, you know, we use one particular B&B with Hilda Merrigan down in Ballyduff for people staying in that area.
Yeah, I stayed with her. Hilda, great lady.
Yeah, lovely lady, and very accommodating. But, like, getting back to the point that people don't recognise the resource that a river could be and the income that it could generate for B&Bs, pubs, even the local garage for the guy getting his breakfast roll before he goes fishing or filling up in his car. And I think that's a general trend that's kind of, you know, replicated across the country, really. There are some exceptions, obviously. Like, I can remember going back, I don't know how many years, possibly about, you know, maybe 10 years ago, myself and my friend Paddy Keenan did a bit of a survey up in Foxford, and we asked a few businesses what the angling revenue meant to them. And we spoke to one particular guy, and he said, Christ, the angling revenue during the season gets me through the winter. He said, without it, I'd be finished. Yeah. So, you know, that's like, when you look at the spending power of anglers, you know, like when we go away on a trip or whatever, even for a day or a couple of days, we're eating in restaurants or eating in the local takeaway, we're buying a few pints, probably a few too many pints. And if I can remember correctly, Garrett and the Mayfly. You know, you're spending more money in the local economy, and it's going back into the local economy by the people that are living there, because they're spending it there as well. And, you know, it's just, I think angling tourism isn't supported enough by the state. It's not recognised enough by the state with the value that it could have. Look, I guide on the Blackwater, as you know, and I couldn't do it full time because I wouldn't make a living out of it. And it's getting harder and harder for guides and, let's say, instructors or whatever to make a living out of angling because it's not being promoted the way it should be promoted by state agencies, be it, in foreign, let's say, shows in America or around Europe. There's no joined up thinking there. And, it's there could be a lot more, revenue coming from it into the country. But to do that, we need to recognize the resource that the rivers are and protect them, definitely protect them, and, make the right decisions rather than just making decisions to keep people quiet.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people, that's what they want to do, is just to keep them quiet.
Yeah.
It's interesting, it's interesting what you said there. And I think definitely there was a time when angling tourism was very heavily promoted in this country. You can go back in the 60s and the 70s. I honestly think the powers that be took their eyes off the ball.
Yeah.
And sort of like, oh, sure, that's grand. We don't need to do that anymore. And they've taken the foot off the pedal so much that it's hard to get back now. And the will doesn't seem to be there to promote it. So, there are other things now. And I think really, and I share with you now as well, God, that's hard to imagine of, that the clients you had couldn't get a bed, or,
Well,
or something that they wanted, in such and like you quote, such a wide area,
Yeah, like they were the type of clients that let's say would have, like when I go fishing, I don't care where I sleep. I'll sleep in a tent in the back of my van, whatever.
What you mean you sleep?
And it's but you have certain clients that come to this country, and they have clients from people from South Africa last week. I get them from every corner of the world, really. But you have to cater for their needs or their wants. They're coming to the country expecting A, B, and C. Some of them, will expect the fishing to be fantastic. Anytime I'm guiding, the first thing I'll say, I can, guarantee you'll have a great time. I can't guarantee a fish. And unfortunately, that's the state that the fishing has got to in this country, that, people come here now on a trip and it's, they spend quite a lot of money. Look, I hate dealing with the exchange of money with guiding, even though it's grand when you're going home and you have a few extra quid in your pocket. But, when people, are experiencing really having to, how would I put it? Work hard to get their fish. Yeah. And sometimes, yourself, you take them out and, it's not just going to happen. But, it can't all be doom and gloom. You have to give people options as well. And that's, thankfully, that's where, on our fishery, the Blackwater Valley Fishery, we do have options, let's say, in high water and low water conditions, with the range of beats that we have and the spread of the beats over low water or low in the river and the middle of the river. So, if the water's high, it's not a case of, oh, look, get out the spinning rods or whatever. No, we'll chop and change and move people around and, do what we can to accommodate people. But, it's like when you've got people coming here to spending big money, you need to pull out the stops, really, and I think make it an experience rather than just a day out fishing, and that goes down to everything from your build up to the trip. Like anybody that I'll have, either through the fishery or my own clients that'll come, I'll always have some bit of background work done to find out who they are, what they're involved in work-wise, if I can, all this type of thing. And I know a little bit about stuff like that. So you can converse with people if they want to converse. Some people just want to be left to fish. But, I found over the years that a lot of people, they do want to sit down and have a chat. And, some of the conversations can end up in crazy places. But it's, we end up solving the world's problems. But it's it's that. It's making sure that they're well kitted out. I try as much as I possibly can, if the weather is okay, to cook out near the river for people rather than bringing along a sandwich. And if I have people for a couple of days, it's my wife makes out the menu for a couple of days.
Good man, lovely, yeah.
But look, she gets a cut as well anyway after it. But sure, look,
she's part of the team.
Oh yeah,
part of the team.
Well, when there's a few quid involved for buying a new handbag or shoes, sure, Christ, why wouldn't she be?
So actually, tell us there. So, how long have you been guiding then, there, Damien?
Well,
Blackwater Valley.
I've been guiding in the Blackwater Valley now for a couple of years, and it was something that I was kind of reluctant to get involved in at the start, guiding, for a fishery or something like that. But I basically got into guiding through casting instruction and started guiding people down in the Laune, which is another river I fish quite a lot, and I would guide people on as well. It's probably one of my favourite rivers to fish. And Noel Crowley, who's the owner of Blackwater Valley Fishery, got in touch and asked me to come on board. So I said, yeah, not a problem. Come down, had a chat, and Noel would get bookings. He'd ring me, "Are you available?" Yeah, no problem. Or I can only do certain days. Like last year, I was free for most of the summer because I had maybe about 6 or 7 months before that I had some heart trouble and had decided after 27 years to pack up my job in the post office. And Christ, it was a great summer. Just fishing, but
lovely.
Yeah, so I did it.
Yeah.
It was great just to have the option of guiding during the week as well, and not have to say, "Oh God, I need to book a day off for this or whatever," and just do things at my own pace. But as I said to you earlier, it's not something you're going to make a living out of. Not down this direction anyway. I know you guys up that side make a killing, but sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm just looking at the Lamborghini parked out here at the back. Yeah.
But I think it was a great opportunity for me, and I do like guiding because you don't know who you're going to meet, you don't know who you're going to talk to, the conversations you get into, and you meet some lovely, lovely people. And it's something that I think comes with it as well, that you build up over time, is the ability to read the people in the first 5-10 minutes. If you haven't done that, you're kind of struggling after that. Like, you know yourselves, guys, that some people just want to be left alone, and they'll give you a shout when they want their flight changed, and other people are standing at the river chatting away to you and not giving a care about the fish.
There's a great piece in one of John Garrett's books where he talks, of that initial meeting when the client is sussing out the guide and the guide is sussing out the client.
Yeah, and it's
happening.
Yeah, it's true. But I try to preempt that by doing a little bit of background, say surveillance on my clients beforehand, just just to make sure I'm not, let's say, broaching any topics or subjects or anything like that that they may not like to, or be interested in or anything like that. And as I said, some people just want to fish, and just to have you there to guide them in the right direction, tell them when to change tips or flies or whatever. And other people just, if like it's, I've come across people who was just the company they wanted, to be honest with you. We've often sat down in the bank and maybe not fished for an hour and a half, just had a chat over a cup of tea. And it's amazing the stories you'd hear, I think one of the most interesting conversations I had was with three doctors. Well, there was two doctors and an anesthesiologist from West Germany, and it was the conversations about the East Germans and when the wall came down, and just the vibe that was going on in the place at that time. It was an incredible conversation. But yeah, there were look, even when you're fishing with people, let's say from different parts of certain countries, you'll see different traits in them. And I had two guys there again from Germany last year. They were from around Bavaria, and the two funniest guys you could ever meet. So much for Germans not having a sense of humor. They had a great sense of humor. Lovely people. And I haven't really come across anybody that I could say that I haven't enjoyed guiding yet. Some people, yeah, maybe, a few peculiarities and that, but generally speaking, guiding has been a good experience for me. And it is amazing because I think it broadens your ability to kind of understand how people learn as well. And even more so with the teaching, because nobody will learn in the same way as the previous person. So you're having to adapt everything from, your, maybe even your speech or the terms you're using, or, whether you're actually going to be more hands-on or less hands-on. And it's trying to read people like that as quick as possible so that they're building up a bit of confidence in you and what you can offer them.
Yeah.
And you're actually instilling confidence in them to do what you're trying to get them to do. And
it's a two-way thing.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And particularly like, with instruction, you've got some fantastic instructors out there, some really good instructors who've gone more than just the instruction and pursued coaching qualifications as well. And I think the coaching element is integral to it, because it's not just taking someone out and showing them, this is how you do this cast, this is what you do, off you go, and blah-de-blah. The coaching side of it is as important as the technical side and the casting mechanics and the body position and the line and all of that stuff. Yeah. So I think they go hand in hand, really.
Yeah. Come here, actually. I just thinking there, you got into that. What got you into? What's your background? Where did it all start for you, the fishing?
Well, I suppose I didn't come into fishing in the way most people would have come into fishing, because no one in my family fished.
Right, yeah.
Wouldn't have known the one end of the rod from another. So we moved house when I was a kid, and there was this pretty eccentric guy living next door to us, himself and his wife, and he was very much into the outdoors. He had beehives, and he had, he used to, one thing he used to fascinate me was he used to collect these butterflies and mount them, absolutely stunning. But he used to also fish. And he was getting over the hill at the time, and Mr. Dawes was his name. Mr. Percy Dawes. I think Percy was his name. But a guy he was a real outdoors person, really loved it. So he was pushing on a bit, and I used to jump over the garden wall into him and, looking at what he was doing. And he used to make nettle wine, and he used to, all this sort of caper. And he said, did I ever fish? Or he asked me if I ever fished. I said, no, I never fished or whatever. So he asked his son, would he take me out? And he did, in fairness to him. And the first river I fished was a tributary of the Blackwater. Whether we should have been fishing it or not, I honestly don't know. But I also got my first driving lesson that day when I was about 12.
He fitted a lot in.
Oh, yeah. Well, the driving lesson was, I was more of a taxi driver for him on the day, because what we did was we drove to this stretch of the river, and it was a long straight road. So he said to me, look, I'm going to walk off down to the next bridge. And he said, you fish down this stretch, he said, and when you're finished, you get in the car, you just turn the key and show me how to put it into gear and just keep the wheels straight. And he said, see, when you get to the bridge, just put your foot on that pedal there. And that was my first driving lesson. And it was, from then, I think that's kind of when I just got hooked, really, excuse the pun. But what it makes me think of is that only for that guy, I probably wouldn't be fishing today, to be honest with you. And it's like, we went out another few times, and I experienced my first time night fishing with him as well. We went out to a river, and it was behind, it was out towards Crossbarry, a place out west. And we went down maybe about 5-6 o'clock in the evening. And now at that time, it was worm fishing. Like most of us started out, you see kids using worms and all the rest of it. So I was a little bit concerned because, it was getting dark, and I was, how am I going to know where the line is going? And he said, right, he said, cast it out, he said, and count how long it takes to come around to here. So I did that, didn't know what it was for. And I remembered later on, cast it out and count. In the pitch black, I knew exactly where it was. Now, scared the living daylights out of me, because I could hear things rustling in the bushes behind, whether it was badgers or foxes or whatever. But I was glad to see the morning. But it was, we had a good few trout, and sure, look, that was it. I got really into it then at that stage, and until girls and drinks came along, I suppose, like most of we kind of drift away from it for a few years. But what it makes me think of it is that, there's plenty of kids out there that don't get that opportunity. And,
Well, do you mind, can I hop in there for a second, Damien?
You can, of course, Garrett, yeah.
One of my first forays, meeting you, and what struck a great chord with me was when I first became inaugurated as a fly casting instructor and joined GAIA. I was pushed straight into action, but you were the lead at the time for youth development and events. As you're saying, Mr. Dawes got you into fishing. You've been giving it back, and GAIA and other organizations have been giving it back. And that's what really has struck me, with the generosity of a group of people and their time and giving their will and working hard to get young people into the sport.
Yeah.
So, like, kudos back to you. Like, what Mr. Dawes did, yourself, and we're not going to go into a list of names, but we know the hardcore crew have been we've all been attending these events for years. And we put a lot of youngsters getting them started. And I'm sure there's a lot of youngsters in 10, 20 years' time, if they're being asked, how did they get into fishing? Oh, I was out in the day, and this nice man from GAIA or this man from whatever gave me a go, and the rest is history. So it goes around and it comes around.
It does. And, it's... I started doing events like that even before I joined GAIA, and, with maybe youth groups, people from disadvantaged backgrounds or people with learning disabilities. And for me, I think one of the days where we were teaching a group of adults, young adults with learning disabilities, that's something that would stick with me for life, I think, because when one caught a fish, there might have been about 12 or 15 of them there, it was like they had all caught that fish.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
their reaction was just something special, you know. It's it's a great thing to be involved in, to get kids and young people into fishing and show them the right way. First of all, with regards to safety, and then how to approach a river and show them how to cast, and just enjoy it. It's not like when I'd have people out, I would talk to people about what's around them as well, things that they mightn't even notice when they're out, or maybe do a bit of kick sampling and stuff like that, and just show them insects, and they're pretty shocked about what they're actually walking on along in a river. But getting back to the events and that, it's we've done stuff like the Ballina Salmon Festival. We'd go up to Foxford. We've been going up there many a year now, where we would have put on casting demonstrations, but more so free tuition and that, and anything that we do in GAIA like that. Here anyway, it's all voluntary. We don't get paid to do anything like that, and we supply the gear, the rods, lines, reels, whatever, and you'd be surprised where it leads to. Because I remember, let's say, going back to we as well, Garrett, we would do Ned's Fair in at Ayr Springs every year.
Yeah, they've been busy.
Been
busy.
And like we've probably clocked up, well over a few hundred per weekend with teaching kids, and you'd be surprised the amount of them that would go away after their maybe 15-20 minutes, where we've made sure that they've caught a fish, and they'd come back with a fly rod that their parents have just bought them. And can you show us how to set it up? You try and give them as much information as you can, because generally the parents don't fish themselves, and what's seen, I suppose, as just kind of maybe an activity for the kids to do on a day out, they can see that the kids are enjoying it, that they're possibly listening to the instructors more than what they'd listen to them at home, and they're enjoying it. So that's where kids, it's fine for kids to come along to something like that, but then you think, right, what's their next step? Where are they going to go to from here? There's a few things, like, depending on where they're living, we try and, give this guy a ring. He'll tell you where you can go, where you can fish or whatever. But I think the clubs have a big, big part to play in getting more young people into fishing. Maybe doing free open days, maybe make them kind of family days where they can possibly even convince one or both of the parents to get involved as well. Like I know up in East Mayo, where I'm a member as well, they do a day for kids with different types of fishing. And
we're in the midst of planning that at the moment. That should be coming up in about the next 6 to 8 weeks' time.
I'm available, Garrett, anyway.
Brilliant.
If you need
And that's in the public domain. You're in. You're on. Good man. Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's I suppose I know when I was young, not that I'm that old now, but getting there though. But it was hard to get into a club, and there was a lot of kind of it was almost like clubs were kind of closed off to having new members in, especially kids or young people, because I suppose the old guard in a lot of clubs, were protective over what they had, and just wanted to go to the river, protect what the fishing that they had, and just keep it that way. Things are changing as the old guard changes, and you have younger people coming onto committees and clubs, and they're getting more young people involved. In the local club in Mallow here, they do have a pretty good active youth section, but that's where a lot of clubs are failing by not bringing more young people on board. Because again,
I agree with you there. The thing with some of the clubs, and I'd say now our own club is kind of good, but some clubs, I suppose, will be suffering from maybe lack of membership or whatever.
Yeah.
So what I would like to see is, clubs have to do it, and I agree with you. Maybe an amalgamation of certain clubs getting together and pull together the resources, get together. Because if you look at any youth activity now, we're all of the age here where we could go off on a bike when we were young. Well, maybe not you, Garrett. Maybe. I know you're that thing.
You're being very good.
But and we went off and we could, but everything is structured now.
Yeah.
You see kids get left to training, whether it be soccer training or, kayaking. Let's say, take for example, kayaking, but it's structured, it's organized. There's a trainer in place. It's from 4 till 6. Children are left there. Everything is done right, and they're collected at 6 or whatever. And we have to look at that because, I suppose, like in angling, a lot of thing is archaic. And look at our shops. There's no multiple at angling shops.
No.
There's still old corner shops and things like that. We've been late to the party with a lot of things, and I think to get them in, we have to up it. Now it's going to take a lot of work. But you look at anything that youths go to these days, it's structured, it's well, look at the way the GAA is run, look at the way the soccer clubs are run, the rugby clubs are run. But as I said, I see kayaking done here, and it's structured. They're brought out at 4 o'clock. They have a 1 hour session with the registered instructor, and there's all health and safety guidelines and all this done, which can be done in fishing. But I think we do have to look at that.
We do, but I think where it starts is with the clubs. Rather than waiting for an approach, set the structure up first of all by having, let's say, your vetting done straight away with people who are going to be working with kids. Have your child welfare and safety training done. Even stuff like safe wading, river rescue courses done, first aid officer on board. All of those things need to be put in place. One, for the protection of the kids, but two, the protection of the members instructor. And the club and the instructor. It's when we would instruct kids, let's say by GAIA, we would insist that there is a parent there as well with the kids, because look, unfortunately, in the times we're in, it's you have to be covered yourself, and look, it gives reassurance as well to parents that things are being done properly and they know their kids are going to get looked after. But I think, like in the past, we've done courses, let's say in secondary schools as well, for transition year students, to get them involved. And there are avenues to get people involved. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of men's sheds out there with, guys that have never fished before that would love a day out and possibly take it up as a hobby. Transition year students in school, the schools are only too delighted because they don't know what the hell to get them to do during their transition year. Yeah, TY, yeah. And it's but look, it's about getting people out, getting them on the river. And I think when you do that, that's when you build more respect for what you've actually got. That people just don't drive over a bridge and not think a second thought of what sort of resources flowing under it,
Yeah. No, it's something that we've been going on a lot about here, and something we have to keep in mind, because it is the future.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you, so you're based in Blackwater, Damien, and salmon, I take it as you love. Do you ever go anywhere else? Do you ever? do a trip or anything?
Yeah. Well, I'll put it this way: from there, 50 weeks of the year is building up brownie points, and 2 weeks of the year is fishing. And I started going to Canada. Well, my first time in Canada was maybe about 15 years ago. I fished on the east coast of Canada, fished the Credit River and a place called Bronte Creek in Ontario. And that kind of opened my eyes up to, what they've actually got over there. And through a couple of good friends of mine, pretty close friends, Mark Tierney and Paddy Keenan and Cahir McGovern, I started going to Canada with them 5 years ago. And we go to BC for 2 weeks normally. And we'd fish, you've got it's just a mecca for fishing. It's, anytime I think of, I'm going to go somewhere else next year, I say, no, I'm going back. It's
what are you targeting?
Salmon. You're looking at coho, chum, pink, king salmon. It's part of the river we go to, or we mainly fish, would be the Harrison River, which is part of the Fraser system. And we'd fish the Vedder River the odd day, and we'd certainly go down to the Vedder River for the first day to, when we're just taking a rest after the long trip and that. But I'll talk to you about the trip in a minute. But it's the Vedder is a sight to behold, because all of these videos you'd see of, fellas standing shoulder to shoulder, you can see that there. And it's just amazing the skill fellas have, how they're not actually getting tangled in the, with the guy next to them. But it's funny, but we've identified spots on the Vedder which are, not in the slightest bit busy to fish, but we'd call them our walk and wade days. But we go over to a guide who we've been using for a long time, Ian Beela. He owns Diamondback Sport Fishing, and excellent guide. And to fish the Harrison, you really would need a guide, because we go up there in a jet boat. And I remember my first year going to Canada, I was thinking, Christ, right, yeah, Canada in October, probably going to be cold. I'd packed the thermals, the whole lot. And we flew into Vancouver, and I think it was 26 degrees. So total change. That was the first week. The second week, it dropped right down to about 12. And you just don't know what you're going to hit. But the fishing could just be off the scale. Like I suppose that first year we were looking at probably landing maybe about 20, 25 salmon each a day, probably losing another 10 to 15. And, you could have, you'd easily have double figure fish. We'd fish other rivers then, like the Chehalis for coho. We've gone up into a place called the Pitt River, which is absolutely amazing. There's a whole story around that I won't get into, but it's just the first time getting off the boat there and stepping off onto the gravel bank, there was a herd of elk just crossing up the river, and I said, oh my God, this place is just heaven. We nearly got stuck there, but if you ever have a podcast with the guide, he'll tell you about that one. But yeah, it's the Harrison River is a fantastic river to fish. It's a big river, can be very deep in places, and it's all Skagit casting, all Skagit lines. Like you'd use anywhere from, let's say, you could go down to maybe T10, T11 with low water, but I found myself casting T22, which, as you know, Garrett, is pretty heavy.
It's fairly chunky. Fairly chunky.
And you're looking at maybe 4 meters of T22. So, with big flies, obviously, but single barbless hooks. And, myself and Paddy Keenan would tie up probably a couple of 100 tube flies for the trip that we would, for the group that would go.
Right.
It's the materials that you're using have a lot of action in it. And it's often made me think about the size of the flies that we'd use here when we'd use them, and even the way we'd fish them. And one of the things that I noticed was that, let's say, you've often been on a river and you're fishing for salmon. You say, you hear fellas on about a short take and all of this, I just nipped the back of it. But the way we'd fish over there is we'd have the hook coming from the tube, but right back at the end of the tail of the fly. So the hook is actually free moving as such. Right. And you'd rarely hook a fish and not hook it well. You might lose a fish purely because of, the fish itself and it maybe, managing to throw the hook. But you'll rarely miss a take.
Right.
And, you'd see fellas using, let's say, spinners, even this time of year, flying seas or whatever. And, you could see a guy using, or if you saw a guy using a tube of the same size, you said, Jesus, what's he at? But, if they take a flying sea that size, why wouldn't they take a tube fly? Yep. It's, but, there's a lot of options for going over there. You'll see people advertising trips and that for, 6 days fishing and, 7 nights accommodation and at 4 and 5 and 6 grand. And, when we go as a group, no one pays any more than anyone else.
Yeah.
We have a good crack and we do 2 weeks for about half the price. So, people can do it if they just do their research and, get good advice. Do your research before you go. Like where we could normally go into is a place called Chilliwack, and that's where we'd base ourselves. There's a few fishing shops there, good fishing shops. Like you've got Dart Gun and Tackle, you've got Fred's, and then you've got Pacific River Outfitters, that's operated by Willie Holmes.
Friend of the show, Willie Holmes. Friend of the show, yeah.
Willie was actually one of my assessors.
Oh, was he? Yeah.
He was, yeah. Going back in the day. And Willie and Phil White. Phil White, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Phil White, lovely man. And the late Mark Patterson, a lovely man as well. Mark was the observer. So, Willie's got a nice setup there, all right, definitely in that shop. Good range of tackle, and very free with information, and always likes his box of Tato and his bars of Yorkie bars brought over from Ireland.
Good stuff. So listen, so definitely you enjoy that trip and you've earned your brownie points for it, yeah?
Yeah. It's somewhere I think I'll keep going back to, really. It's what fishing should be, really. They just, even the way they protect their fishing and looking at the hatchery systems they've got there, it's just on another level. It's you'd spend a few hours alone in the hatchery just looking at how it's done, and just the volumes of fish coming up into it are just incredible. And also with the monitoring of the fish, they do a sweep of a net. I think it's every second day. It's called down at the Albion Counter, Albion Fishery, and they'll monitor the number of fish coming into the system. and the species of fish. And if it looks like, numbers aren't going up for certain species, they'll close the fishery to that species for a few days. And as the numbers start rising, then they'll reopen it. And, it's done on a real-time level rather than reactive situation where we have here,
That's really good. That's really good. Yep. Very good.
Put your fly rod back in your hand for a moment.
Right. Okay.
Tell us. We as we do with all of our visitors, all of our guests, what is your most memorable fish on the fly, Damien?
Okay. There's actually two. And the first one would be going back to when I started going out with that neighbour that we had, Mr. Dawes. My first time actually catching a trout on the fly. And haven't a clue what type of fly it was, but it was the fish. The fish was a trout, but it wasn't the size of it, but it was actually the colours of the fish.
Yeah.
There's beautiful red spots, and just the colour of the fish. It's something that still draws me to even look at pictures of trout and, look at the different colours of the different trout from different rivers and that. And that's, what kind of set me on the road, really. But I suppose one of the most memorable fish and something that still gives me nightmares is one fish that I hooked in Canada. I didn't land it, but there's a video floating around. I think Mark Tierney might have it actually, where he's giving a running commentary, and there's a few expletives when the fish came off, but and having to apologize. I was actually doing a live stream at the time. He had to apologize to his audience, but it was like the fish just took the fly and it was just gone clean across the river. I had to get into the boat and we had to follow the fish. And to say the rod was bent over double, I was using a gale force rod at the time. I think it was a 15-foot gale force rod I think I had up. And using, I think it was about T17, 12 or 4 meters of T17 with a Chinook fly, which would have been, I think the colours on that particular fly were blue and a chartreuse, a lot of flash in it. And that fish, when they take it, you just would not put your hand near the reel, anywhere near the reel. You'd end up with broken knuckles. And the fish just took off clean across the river, went up, came back down. I was well into probably half of the backing on a couple of occasions, and that reel just absolutely screaming. It was what was I using? The Danielson reels are renowned for the stopping power, and this thing just, there was not a hope it was stopping this fish unless I locked it down. And if I did that was it. The fish was gone. We're using, I think I had 25-pound breaking strain leader up, and the fish, it was just the sheer power in that fish. It's something that I'll not forget. Like, that's something that's, can swim, possibly feet away from you, that, they're really controlling you rather than the other way around.
I like that.
I didn't see the fish completely. I saw his back coming up the top. I saw, yes, I nearly have him. I know he was gone again, just gone completely, and came up around the side of the boat. The fish jumped. I didn't see it, and I was off. And when I turned around, the guide, Ian, was standing behind me with his head in his hands, and he said, "Do you want me to tell you what size I think that fish was?" I said, "No." And that way, no, he says, I don't think I could do that to you. But
come on, did you not?
We reckon the fish was probably close to 40 pounds. But it was, but sure, look, I was like a child in that fish's arms because it was just, you just couldn't control it. It was just.
Hey, but isn't it great? You had the experience and you had the story. It's boring if you land them all.
Yeah. But it's it's not just the fish; it's the people you go fishing with as well.
Yeah. Very true.
And,
very true.
Some aren't with us any longer today, and hopefully they're fishing a bigger river in the skies. But it's, we always look forward to, just meet new people, hear new conversations, and, just making contacts and, looking forward to next time we get out on the water.
Brilliant. Lovely. Good ethos. Lovely ethos. Great chat, Damien. I like your ethos.
Really good to have you on, Damien. Some great stuff there. Really
Thanks
great.
very much, Tom.
Fair play. Really good talking to you.
And you too,
We'll
guys.
see you. We'll see you up in the west. We'll see you up here in the west coast soon.
Oh yeah, pretty soon.
Our thanks to Damien for joining us on the show this evening. And don't forget to rate, review, and follow Ireland on the Fly on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus, you can keep up to date on all that's happening with Facebook, Instagram, or IrelandOnTheFly.com on the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.